That's why I was still writing my notes. Exactly. Okay, great. So hopefully you all know me by now. For those that are new in the room this afternoon, I'm Justin Betty at Intertech, and I sit on the APSCA Executive Board, obviously representing Intertech. I'm going to speak a little bit about the code and standards, some clarity around some of the specific codes and standards, and also some clarity around registered auditors and certified auditors. So I've only got 2 slides. It's not a lot, but I've got a lot of notes on the code and standards to go through. So I'm going to try and make it as exciting as I can for everyone. And then I think, have we got a slide? Is it on? Okay, yep, I've got it. There we go. Okay, cool, excellent. So earlier on this year, we released what we're calling the enhanced code and standards. Now, they weren't significantly different. They didn't contain any major differences from the original code that all the members had signed up to. Rather, we sort of reorganized them. We separated them so that we had the actual code element, but then underneath, as you know, there are the additional requirements relating to that code element. So there's nothing specifically, no major new code elements added. It was more of a reorganization. Now, it's, I think, a point of clarification also on the code and standards document, which I'm sure everyone in the room has read in extreme detail. I'm sure everyone has. Is that it does mention CSCA, obviously, Certified Social Compliance Auditor. Now, in this interim phase, it's important to note that when we talk about registered auditor, it means the same thing. So when we talk about CSCA, RA, it's the same thing. So registered auditor does have the same responsibilities, obligations, and the same rights as a certified auditor. Now, we all know that we've got this situation until we phase out the registered auditor pool, and then we'll just have the two levels of auditor, the associate auditor and the certified auditor. So it's important when yourselves, the industry, customers, other stakeholders are reading the code and standards, although it says CSCA right now, we should apply that also applies to registered auditor as well. Okay. Some other clarity around some other particular subjects that are up there. The use of the membership numbers. So, a membership number for the firm and for the auditor. We have now actually produced a document that is available on the APSCA website that goes into details about how the numbers can be used, when the number should be used, when it shouldn't be used. So I'm not going to go through this document now, but it's definitely a document we should all review to understand where the membership numbers can and cannot be used. Now, it's been mentioned a few times already today that the membership number can be used, obviously, in audit reports, but it should only be used when that audit is a social compliance auditor. It's not to be used for other types of audit, for environmental or technical or factory audits. It is limited to a social compliance auditor, and the definition there, again, of a social compliance auditor is in the code and standards document as well. So just to make that very clear. Also, yes, so be aware that there are organizations out there, there are customers, clients, other organizations that are reviewing audit reports and are looking to see whether the membership number is or is not on there, and also whether the audit was undertaken by an associate auditor, a registered auditor or a certified auditor. And at APSCA, we are getting information, intelligence from the industry that some audit reports do not have the right level of auditor who executed the audit. So this is growing and growing. So it's very important, that the right level of auditor is allocated to the auditor, i.e. a registered auditor or a certified auditor has to be the lead auditor, okay? So, and we are getting that intelligence from the industry that some audits are not complying with that rule, and I'll speak about that in a little bit. Kelly also talked about this earlier, so did others, is that we are going to request from members to report quarterly on when a registered or certified auditor has not been used. And the reason to do this is twofold. Obviously, we've signed up to the code and standards, and that's what we've committed to. But secondly, it's also to identify where there may be countries, regions, where, as member firms, there may be challenges in getting registered certified auditors in that country, and there's a capacity issue. Because that's good intelligence for us as an industry, an organisation, to identify that and try to solve those challenges. Okay, I won't start quoting numbers, but section 3.1.6, if you turn to that, because you've all got it in front of you, the code and standards, 3.1.6, auditor performance monitoring. So just some clarity here. It is a requirement that each year, every auditor is reviewed. Now, desktop, a shadow audit, etc., etc. We all know the procedures there. So every auditor has to go through an annual review process. Now, if you also read the code and standards, it is a requirement as well that there is a policy and procedure to identify underperformance of auditors and where an auditor is in violation of the code and standards. So that is a requirement here. So some clarity there, that as member firms, we all have to have that policy and process in place to identify underperformance as well, and whether the auditor is in violation of the code and standards. And important, there's one important phrase there that I missed out. It's that has to be communicated to auditors. So as member firms, every auditor has to be aware of the fact that they have to go through an annual review, and that any underperformance or violation of the code and standard will be identified. So the auditors have to be aware that that policy and process is in place. Okay, coming on to annual reporting. I won't spend a lot of time on that because I think Kelly and others and Ron have already discussed it in some detail. But I just wanted to mention that there is a requirement under the code and standards that we signed up to, for the need to be transparent with APSCA. So upon request by APSCA, true and accurate information shall be made available by members to verify conformance with the expectation in the code and standards. So if APSCA makes that request, the member has to engage and then be transparent on the information that they provide relating to that issue. Now, 5247, so turn your page to 5.2.4.7, this relates to the complaint handling. So each year, as Kelly said, we are expected to report on the number of complaints. Now, those complaints are the number, the source of those complaints, the breakdown on type of complaint, the percentage of complaints that are substantiated and unsubstantiated, and the disciplinary action taken. Now, the reason I want to focus on this is because we are not requiring specific details of factories or customers or clients to be in that detail. This is high-level data to understand statistics around performance, around complaints. Okay, because I think there's some misunderstanding. So just to get clarity there, it's not trying to gather intelligence about about companies, customers, and clients. It's just understanding where complaints are and what area, how number, are they being dealt with as per the code and standards. Okay, now I have to turn the notes on my page. Oh my God, there's another 10 pages. No, not really. Not really. It's only 2 pages. So, conflicts of interest. The new code is a little bit more clearer here. And I'm going to read this out because I think it's very important, so bear with me. Member firms must be impartial and avoid conflicts of interest that, in fact, or in appearance, may create an incentive to report anything other than the true and accurate facts gathered during a social compliance audit. So that's completely clear now, okay? But it's a very important part of the code and standards. Now, this includes potentially suggesting that a customer use a consultancy firm to support the audit results or offering to ignore findings that aren't major. These are violations of that independence and will result in disciplinary action. Okay. Now, there are a number of firms that are currently being under investigation because of this. Okay. So it's a very important part of the code and standards around the conflicts of interests and the independence as well during an audit activity. A little bit more clarity on this independence. So, member firms shall not conduct a social compliance service where the member firm, including the auditors, the owners and managers, have a business interest in the outcome of the audit. And I think we all know that. And we all know that, you know, there are activities in our industry where there is a conflict of interest between the audit and other activities. And this is in black and white to make it very clear about during an audit activity, there can be no interest by the member firm on the output of that audit result. So members also shall not perform social compliance services at a facility where the member firm, its owners or managers have provided social compliance consultancy in the previous 2 years. Again, that's a firewall to prevent any type of conflict of interest. So undertake an audit, but not if in the previous 2 years there's been some type of consultancy activity at that site. Right, okay, so one of the last sections here is some clarity around investigations and allegations and reporting violations of the code and standards. I'm going to read this one out because it's fun. 2.3.1.9.2. This is like going through the exam, isn't it, actually? That clause states that there is a requirement to report to APSCA the results of any investigation where disciplinary action is taken in response to a violation of the code. So, member firms, when you go through that process, it has to be then reported to APSCA. This was stated in the original code and also the enhanced one that was released earlier this year. So nothing's actually changed there. It's the same requirement. It is the responsibility of members to inform APSCA if a violation of the code has occurred. And there's also a responsibility on APSCA to be transparent regarding suspension, withdrawing, certification of member firms stroke member auditors. Okay. So that's some clarity. Hopefully that's cleared up some issues and questions that were asked today and previously brought to APSCA. So we wanted to have this session to bring some clarity around those subjects before I moved on. Ron, did you want to say anything else on that? Okay. I paid you well then. Right, just the last one. Take a few minutes. Actually, no, I've got 2. Competence. I forgot about competence, actually. So just some clarity around competence. But this was literally mentioned, I think, 15 minutes ago as well. it is the responsibility of member firms to make sure that when they send auditors out to an audit, that that auditor has the right skills and competence and are an associate auditor, a registered or certified auditor. Now, if a member firm tries to send an auditor, an associate auditor, to an audit, that is in breach of the code and standards. And it's not just the audit firm that is breaching the code and standards, it is the auditor themselves. And I think that's a very important point to note, that if that ended up being a disciplinary action, it would be against the auditor and the member firm. And I think that's important for auditors to make aware of that as an associate, you should not be going out doing an audit on your own, unless there is a registered auditor or a certified auditor with you. Right, okay, I can get on to another slide now. And it's got some colours as well, and some numbers. Okay, yeah. All I was going to say on here, as I think Ronna said earlier, we've now have APSCA coverage in 96 countries, which I think is pretty incredible. But one of the challenges we have is there is a small number of countries where it's been difficult to get auditors to the RA level or certified level. I'm sure many of us in the room have experienced this, which is one reason why that we've come up with Pathway 3 to give us more flexibility in getting auditors in those countries where traditionally there's not been a big pool of qualified, experienced social auditors. But it's worth noting that out of those 96, there's only 11 countries that only have an associate auditor. So still, when customers and clients want us to audit in those 11 countries, it's still a challenge, and we have to be creative about the way we can meet their expectations. In those 11 countries, they are surrounded by countries that do have registered and certified auditors. So there are ways of getting qualified auditors into those countries. But I think that the other 73 countries do have registered and certified or certified auditors in there. So we're doing pretty well in covering the capacity and requirements of the industry, stroke our customers and clients, etc. And we will have to continue working hard on those 11 to get, the right qualifications, qualified auditors into those 11 countries. I'm not going to read out. I could read out the 11 countries, can't I? So Bolivia, Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Lebanon, Croatia, Slovenia, Latvia, Norway. That's 9. I've got 2 countries missing. So there's 9 countries plus 2 that are not on my list where we've only have associate auditors, But it's ongoing. This is one of the challenges. As we raise the bar in terms of this industry and make it more credible, more professional, there are going to be countries where we're going to have to be creative, work together to make sure we can meet the needs of our customers, clients, the industry in getting registered auditors in those countries. And it is a priority for APSCA, the executive board, the stakeholder board, to make sure we work together to get coverage in all countries. So I think that's it. I think that's me done, Ronna. Yeah, I'm thinking there's going to be lots of questions on that. I have a feeling. So I'm just going to leave those questions to you.